Welcome to another edition of PACTV Community News. I'm Larry King.
I'm Kim Mio. This week on PACTV Community News, you'll meet a Plymouth resident who resolved to turn around a personal tragedy.
Just to be a voice for a lot of people who are no longer a voice because they died in fires that never should have happened.
You'll greet a new staff member at the Pembroke Public Library.
Your idea of what a reference librarian might be is kind of evolved to become something a little more involved with technology.
And you'll meet a local author who cooks on an open fire.
I'd love to see more people cooking with fire. So much fun. The food tastes so great.
You'll visit a new retail store in Duxbury's Snug Harbor.
We realized that it was pretty hard for Duxbury people to find and Plymouth people and Kingston people to find local oysters around here.
And you'll meet a young juggler from Duxbury.
I want to be giving to people and performing for the rest of my life.
Our arts and entertainment reporter goes to a performance of the African Children's Choir.
And Town Talk this week comes from Pembroke. These local stories are coming up on this week's edition of PACTV Community News. From its modest beginnings harvesting oysters in Duxbury Bay, Island Creek Oysters continues to provide oysters to many high-end restaurants all over the country. This local company has recently opened a retail store in Duxbury's Snug Harbor. PACTV Community News stopped by their new location.
We started the retail store because we really needed a way to get local people who have been such great supporters of ours over the years access to the product. A lot of the oysters that we grow, we end up shipping to French Laundry in California or down to the Four Seasons in Miami, and we realized that it was pretty hard for Duxbury people to find and Plymouth people and Kingston people to find local oysters around here. So we decided to open the shop and give people a place to come and gather and buy our product. So we've got a few different varieties of oysters. The neat thing is that over the years, we developed these relationships with all the chefs, and we also had friends in the industry, small farmers around Cape Cod and the South Shore and further afield who grow great oysters. So eventually we figured out, well, why don't we sell some of their product to these chefs as well? And they really kind of enjoyed working with us. So now we have access to all these varieties. So the list is always changing here at the store, but today we have moon shoals, which are grown down in Barnstable by a guy named John Martin, who's a firefighter. We've got spring creeks, which are also from Barnstable. It's a really neat activity to be able to see how different the two Barnstable oysters are. It's grown by a guy named Scott Laurie. And then of course we have the eponymous Island Creeks, which have given life to this whole place. And my personal favorite, but I'm pretty biased.
So oysters are a lot like wine in that they take on the characteristics of their environment, or their environment really dictates their flavor profile. The oysters that are grown here in Duxbury taste very different than the oysters grown in Barnstable or really anywhere else. And that, like Chris said, that's kind of a fun thing to do, to try a different oyster just to see how that environment slightly changes the nuance of the oyster.
We built a brand over the years. We started out doing a lot of events in Boston and eventually got a pretty good following of both chefs and people that were interested in eating our oysters. That's allowed us to do a lot of cool things like a nonprofit foundation and open a couple restaurants. But my personal favorite thing is the merch line that we have now. So we've got a bunch of t-shirts. Some of them are very tasteful and well done. Others are more on the rude side if you're into that type of thing. We've got great hats that are handmade and made by a company that's based in Dedham. They're actually needlepoint oyster hats. And we have baby onesies that say "a shucker born every minute." So that merch line is a lot about pushing the brand forward and giving people a way to show their Island Creek pride.
So the space used to be my dad's fish market. He was a lobsterman and had lobster tanks in here and sold the lobsters that he caught. We actually sold some fish too. Years ago, we kind of shut that down. My dad became an oyster farmer and started growing oysters with me, and had a small retail shop out of here. But it was really, you just drop in, and if you caught them, you could buy oysters. If not, you're out of luck. So we gave the place a facelift and added full-time hours. So.
Luckily, we got the Billy Bennett stamp of approval also.
Yeah.
On the model for the shop.
And the secret recipe for the shrimp.
Which is key.
The Pembroke Public Library offers a wide variety of programs for their patrons, including yoga, book groups, exhibits, and special events. Recently, the library added a new reference librarian, and PACTV Community News visited with her to bring you this update.
Hi, I'm Lindsay McGrath. I am the new reference librarian here at Pembroke Public Library. I wanted to tell you a little bit about what my position here is and how I can help you out. Your idea of what a reference librarian might be is kind of evolved to become something a little more involved with technology. I do get the reference requests for connecting you to information that you might not have access to, like as far as academic papers go, through databases, or some history questions, Pembroke history questions. We do have a history room here, but a lot of my job now does center around technology questions, learning how to download ebooks onto your e-reader, questions regarding computer tech help, and we have some workshops that we are running that are open to the public and free. Coming up on Thursday, February 20th from 7 to 8, we have a workshop on clutter control, where a lot of people learn how to manage your clutter and how to not acquire clutter. I help people when, because I know technology is overwhelming, and a lot of people get new devices for presents. I'm sure a lot of people got Christmas presents, and they are overwhelmed with how to use this technology. So I am support for those people that have questions, regarding technology, and if you do have the reference questions, I can help you learn how to search our databases. We have a wide range of databases. We have, databases on learning how to price antiques, learning how to speak new languages. We also have Chilton's database, which is a database to help you, learn how to do it-yourself home mechanic kind of projects. I help people connect with information. The majority of things are available online now. It's just a matter of knowing how to search for the information, and that's kind of how technology has changed the role of the reference librarian. There's almost too much information out there, and it's just learning how to access that information. A lot of people just need basic computer help. So right now I'm working, I've done a survey to find out what people are interested in getting help with. And so we're going to be doing some workshops on just basic computer help, basic email, basic Microsoft Office, that where people a lot of times are a little uncomfortable asking because they might be embarrassed not knowing, some of the basic stuff. But there's a ton of people out there that just need help with the fundamentals of computers, and that is where I come in to kind of alleviate that anxiety and help people not feel so overwhelmed by technology. I'm here Monday from 10 to 2, Tuesday, Wednesday from 2 to 8, and Thursday from 5 till 8.
This month marks the 11th anniversary of the devastating Station nightclub fire in Rhode Island, when a pyrotechnic display created a tragedy. Rob Feeney, a local Plymouth resident who survived the blaze but lost his fiancée and 2 friends that night, has made it his mission to modify current sprinkler laws in nightclubs. PACTV Community News spoke with Rob about his efforts.
The injuries were, in hindsight, they're the easiest to get over, the physical injuries. You have your occupational therapy, your physical therapy, and you just keep setting goals. And for me, with my hands being amongst the worst physical injuries other than the internal, burns that I had. Some of the things, like my first couple of goals were just that, turning keys, turning doorknobs. And after about a month, I was able to do that. You know, it was pain, I'd bleed, you know, as my hands would be bandaged up, but you just get the determination to do it. The Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors is the only national organization that actually provides direct support for burn survivors and their families, friends, loved ones. Basically what they do is when you leave the hospital, Phoenix Society kind of takes over. And it's a huge mental and emotional support that you can't get anywhere else. It's, words can't even describe it, to be honest. Every year we run the World Burn Congress. It's a burn conference, so we call it World Burn Congress, but it's literally 800 to 1,000 people, which is all burn survivors, their families, their friends, firefighters, healthcare professionals. It's been huge for me. You know, I haven't missed a World Burn yet since 2003. Since the Station Nightclub fire, Massachusetts jumped on board pretty quick, just as Rhode Island did, and it made very strict sprinkler laws for nightclub type establishments. There's any establishment that has occupancy of over 99 people and has entertainment is required to have a sprinkler system. So there should be incentives for people to put the sprinklers in. You know, I'm not the type of person that says, oh, make everything a law. They have to do it. Give them the incentive to do it. Make them want to do it so they're getting their money back, just as they're buying furniture for their office. You know, you could lose your entire property and have hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars in damage. Or you could have a couple $1,000s in water damage and no injuries, no life loss. I've been to Chattanooga and helped them pass the laws to require all their nightclubs to have sprinklers. I've been in Chicago, I've been in Virginia and in Washington, D.C. And just to be a voice for a lot of people who are no longer a voice because they've died in fires that never should have happened, or severe injuries that were 100% preventable. You know, it's an honor, you know, and I think that's really one of the main reasons why I survived the fire that I survived.
Plymouth resident Paula Marcoux, editor of Edible South Shore magazine, is also the author of a book about cooking over an open fire. Paula has rediscovered techniques and recipes using only an open fire to prepare all kinds of meals. PACTV Community News saw Paula in action.
Anyone who has the ability to have a fire anywhere can cook this way. Many people, even if you don't have a fireplace like this, you might have a little fire pit outside or just the ability to make a campfire. Certainly in the suburbs, in the countryside, that's possible most any place. These are English muffins. They're baking one side and another on a griddle. A griddle is a really simple way to bake. It doesn't require an oven. I've just taken some coals from this fire and I've pulled them out from beneath the main fire and popped them under the griddle to create a nice, even, gentle heat. This is just a little simple yeast dough that's been risen and now is baking on both sides. When you buy English muffins, they're basically like this, and these we will pull apart and toast with a fork later to have for breakfast. I'm also just frying bacon, just like you would fry bacon at home, on some little coals and just a tiny amount of fire. The simplest thing in the world is to roast vegetables just by the heat of the fire. These little onions have been sitting here for maybe 2 hours, doing nothing but just being turned maybe once every half hour, get this nice even heat, and they're incredibly delicious, just cut up and peeled with some butter and salt and pepper, nothing more than that. A brick oven is a great way to bake beans. People have been doing it that way for a long time because it's really, really good. It condenses the flavor. There's just pork, onions, really nice yellow-eyed beans. But it's baking in the oven. The clay oven or the masonry oven draws the moisture out in such a way that the flavors are incredibly condensed and delicious. They're really just the best beans. I'm mixing up flip. I have about a tablespoon of molasses, about a shot of rum, and 1 beer. Cheap is fine. And that's the entire mixture, but the really important part is the procedure. So it looks like this flip iron is very nice and hot. Holding the glass over a surface that I don't mind if it gets a little bit wet, I'm going to put this poker in the drink. I used to be afraid that the glass would break, but apparently those fears are unfounded. It doesn't seem to. It just diffuses the heat. I wouldn't use an heirloom, but still it somehow manages to withstand even having the poker touch the edge of the glass. So when we have this at home, everyone gets to make their own, but they're careful. When you have a hot poker, you don't wave it around, and you put it only in the drink, and then maybe back in the fire to warm up again, because it's really, really, really hot. That is hot. I'd love to see more people cooking with fire. So much fun. The food tastes so great. It's a great way to get in touch with your friends and your family, and to also get in touch with the people who've gone before, the cooks who've cooked for generations before us, before there were gas ovens and stoves and electric stoves. Everyone used to cook this way, and because of that, there's thousands of great recipes out there that no one's cooked in a long time that are really worth looking at again, and that's what really motivates me.
Here on PACTV Community News, we like to profile people from our communities with unique stories to tell. We met a young man from Duxbury who has many talents and has already taken his performance skills to the streets from Plymouth to Boston.
My name's Wolf Letterman. I'm a performer around Massachusetts, and I'm 16 years old. I kind of perform all over the place, anywhere my mom will drive me.
Wolf's performing inspiration began at an early age with a visit to his grandparents in South Africa.
We were sent to Cape Town, South Africa, where they lived. There were all these street performers and musicians and mimes and such. Everyone was dancing, having a good time, and there were a bunch of people with painted faces, Mardi Gras, white faces, big crazy costumes. It was really loud and crazy, and there was something really scary about it, and entertaining and intriguing at the same time. Growing up and seeing street performers, I would see people in Boston balancing 40, 50-pound shopping carts on their chins, hammering nails into their faces. The crazier your show was, and the more odd you looked, the bigger a crowd they got, and the better tips they got in their hat. I think one of the biggest things that helped me to get comfortable in front of a crowd was all my training with Geronimo Sands and Andy from Priscilla Beach Theater, where I started when I was 7 or so. So that's where I learned memorizing your lines, learning to improv, learning to project, because that's super important on stage or on the street, anywhere. If they can't hear you, it doesn't matter how good you are. You're not giving them anything because they can't understand. There's no communication there.
I've only messed this trick up once. I'm really glad to have a second try at it today. There you go. She's all nervous. She's like,
I'm a performer all around. I do a lot of different kinds of performance. And so what started with clown and then went to juggling and magic. I got that magic kit that everyone gets as a kid and obsessed over that, started going through the card tricks and stuff. And so it kind of developed into a show that I have now, which starts with a little bit of magic, some close-up tricks, And then I throw the, to get a few people in, I'll do some really close-up things like putting a phone into a balloon or hammering a nail into my face, stuff that you can't see with a bunch of different people. And then I'll start throwing the fire in the air, and as soon as people see that flame, it's a huge crowd. Everyone wants to come over, like, oh my God, it's the fire, it's the fire. So I'll start juggling the fire, doing Diablo, which I'm very skilled with the prop. So that kind of stuff brings the audience together. Everyone starts clapping, and if you can get them to clap, then they're on your side. If you can get them to participate willingly without you asking, you've already got them hooked. You don't have to worry about the money or if they're really enjoying it. You know by the give and take. It's really different than TV because they'll start to be with you. There's no fourth wall. You're right in their faces, and especially once you bring people up as volunteers, there's no boundaries. Being in front of a crowd on the street, just pulling in a crowd from complete strangers that aren't expecting a show and entertaining them for a good 20 minutes or so is a lot harder than anyone would think. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of knowing what you're doing, and a lot of trial and error to do it. Most of my first 100 shows were spent figuring out how to give people a show where it deserved money. The whole thing about theater is this is give and take. It's a live performance. You have to give them your all before you receive the energy back. I want to be giving to people and performing for the rest of my life, whether it's in Cirque du Soleil or at a haunted house or doing improv or in the movies. I'm not really sure where I'm going to land, but I always want to be a performer. I always want to keep on growing and sharing and creating my talent and creating art for people.
Hi, this is Michelle McGrath for PCN's Arts and Entertainment News, and we're on site at the PAC in Duxbury, where the African Children's Choir is getting ready to perform with South Shore Conservatory's children's choruses. Listen in.
I wanted to have a bunch of kids that I've, taken care of from the word go, from when they enroll into the choir to the time they go back to Uganda to go to the African Children's Choir Primary School. So I really prayed about it. I was like, God, I really want to have a bunch of kids I have mentored myself. So when this opportunity came up, I just grabbed it because I was praying for that. And for me, it was a prayer answered.
Like a winner, when the Spirit of the Lord comes upon my life, I will dance like a winner. Like every dance, you come from heaven to show the world.
Are you enjoying your tour?
Yes.
How's the music? Is it really exciting?
Yes, it's really exciting.
Do you think when you go back home to Uganda, you're going to keep singing these songs?
Yes.
What's your favorite?
My favorite song is Sing.
Well, that makes sense, considering that's what you're doing here, right?
Yes,
Had you seen snow before you came to the United States?
No.
What was the first thing that you did when you saw snow the first time?
We ate it and played in it.
I bet you did. That must have been so fun. Have you been enjoying this tour?
Yes, Aunt.
Where's been your favorite city to visit so far?
New York City.
New York City. I bet that was a lot of fun.
The concert tours raise funds for all of the programs of Music for Life. It started back almost 30 years ago now, back in 1984, with one choir that came over. And we're the 40th choir to go out. There have been now 41.
To my father's house, come and go with me. To my father's house, a big, big house with lots of more like you. More like you.
once they're in the choir, their education is covered up until the end of college or university, which is also pretty exciting.
This experience of bringing kids in their different cultures, their different worlds, but everything comes together through that power of music.
All proceeds from tonight's African Children's Choir concert go back to Uganda to support their mission. Michelle McGrath for PCN's Arts and Entertainment News.
Well, hi folks, this is Ed Thorne, Pembroke Town Administrator, to fill you in on what some of the events are for February 2014. This is the time of year when we start looking at our fiscal budget for FY15, which starts July 1. Usually the game plan is for me to present a balanced budget to our advisory committee, and that will occur Monday night when I approach the committee and with the Board of Selectmen and with some department heads as to our proposed budget for next year. The advisory committee then will be working from the template on my budget throughout the spring, and by April, when we have town meeting, then hopefully we'll have a consensus as to what our budget will look like going into next year. The numbers are around about $56 million is our annual budgets, give or take 100,000 or so, and we'll be working with that with the advisory and with our departments between now and town meeting, which is April 22nd. With that, we'll also be entertaining articles from individuals and department heads for maybe individual projects or funding projects for Oldham Pond, Furnace Pond. These are things that we have on a regular basis where we need to fund some of the treatment for the ponds to prevent any algae blooms, and we use a variety of chemicals for Oldham, Furnace Pond, and the hydrilla problem that we have at Hobomog. So basically those are the things that we do during the month of February, and obviously in the middle of the month we have school vacation week, so there's a little bit of downtime between town government and the school department regarding that. So, and then for next year, we'll also be looking at our trash disposal program, whether we have a new program to take our trash to, whether it would be CMAS in Rochester or ABC Disposal in New Bedford. And also we'll be negotiating with our current trash hauler, Mike Delpert and Sons, for a new contract that will be effective July 1st. So we got a lot of budgetary stuff going on in the month of February. So even though it's a short month and one that's controlled by the weather, basically it's all preparing for next year.
Thanks for watching PACTV Community News. Replay times are listed at pactv.org. Click on the PCN logo to watch each complete edition or individual story.
See us on YouTube by searching for the PACTV Community News channel. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter to receive previews each week with links to all our stories.
PACTV Community News will feature highlights from past programs during the coming weeks as we prepare for our new look beginning March 6th.
Keep an eye out for the new PACTV Community News coming in March.